Hey everyone, welcome to the show. We are back. We are back after a week off.
Yep.
2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks. We missed a week. We were at Geek Media Expo GMX in Nashville. I went to a number of panels that I ended up taking some notes on that I may just run down here. You spent most of the time doing Chainsaw Buffet stuff,
Yeah, I was
getting
also kind of
interviews.
helping out in the media room because I needed people just to be there in case they need anything.
Let's see, what did I made notes, so that, let's see, there we go. I went to a science fiction writers panel. So this woman was a sci-fi author, and she had an interesting. A lot of her talk was like on defining soft sci-fi versus hard sci-fi. Where soft sci-fi is basically magic, like it's trilithium crystals. Why does the ship? I don't know, trilithium. That's how it happens. Whereas like hard science fiction will basically describe it to you like it's still science fiction, but like here's kind of how it works. Here's why it works. Here's
They
what
come
we're
up with
doing.
a believable,
Right. Like in
but
Asimov, where he talks about how hyperspace is this folding of space and joining 2 points at an instantaneous moment, and then being able to move through time and space, through a smaller, like we've put some effort into how this could work. It's still science fiction,
yeah,
but it's harder that. So basically, if her rule was like, if I can't explain it, it doesn't get into the book. And I was kind of like paying attention here just from a writing games perspective, right? So if I can't explain it, it doesn't get into the book. Like if I can't tell you why that works, then I don't put it in there. And also in with that, this I thought was really good for games. One sentence of education at a time. So basically, like in a paragraph or a section, you can't spend like 3 paragraphs explaining how the drive works, right?
yeah.
Basically, you gotta explain it in like a sentence.
So basically, know at what point you need to hand wave everything else away.
Well, no, she still doesn't do the hand waving everything else away.
Well, I
It's
don't
just
mean
that the description of the systems cannot require a degree upon themselves to understand. So yeah, you've worked all this stuff out, but like as Asimov, again,
yeah.
fold space, join 2 points, make a small jump. It's like, okay, I get
If
kind
you
of
introduce it, do it slowly, or don't, or at a very high level. Don't dig down into it.
Well, it's a link thing. It's not introduce it slowly. It's a link. It's one
Yeah.
sentence. Describe it in one sentence and move back to the plot. Don't spend a lot of time describing how it works. And then something, it kind of segued off of one of my questions, because I put it to her. Because writing has a lot of the same, science fiction and fantasy have a lot of the same problems of genre definition that games do. In that the genre definitions of sci-fi and fantasy are meaningless bullshit, right?
Yeah.
They're settings, What makes something steampunk is its setting, but it could be a western, it could be a romance, it could be a horror, it could be, sci-fi steampunk, right? Like, it doesn't describe what it is. And one thing that, we talked about and got in there, and Amazon's kind of doing this already, but it's moving away from genres and moving to tags. Like, so instead of having explicit, like, first-person shooter as a genre, it's like, no, that's a tag.
Yeah, that's
First-person
one
shooter,
of many things.
puzzle, narrative, story-driven. Oh, that's Portal. Okay, it's like having multiple tags, and I kind of like that idea. And then, she said something to wonder about, too, is like, we've had a lot of sci-fi, not recent years, but 10, 20 years ago, was very predictive,
Yeah.
It was very, like, Douglas Adams, basically, the Kindle is, the Hitchhiker's Guide book, right? The digital book pulls up Wikipedia. It's like that became the future, and how there's this symbiotic relationship between scientists and science fiction writers of like, one half is kind of dreaming, the other half is making it real, inspired by the books that they read. They now want to build a warp drive, because they read these stories about it. And she was basically saying, like, that's lost a little bit. Like, we've advanced so much, like, the future's in my pocket with, my iPhone now, and, we don't have, like, the current crop of sci fiction isn't really out there, like, what's the next step? But she said, like, she thinks it would be, you could be very successful artists if you sit back, writers and such, if you sit back and think about that of, like, okay, so what is next? And, Gene Roddenberry talked about creating Star Trek by sitting down and saying, okay, man has space travel. Okay, what's next? We go to the moon, of course. What's next? We go to our own solar system. What's next? We meet aliens. What's next? And he just kept running like this what's next thing, writing all this out, until now he's sitting there and he's like, oh, well, of course, there's a galactic federation, and, there are these factions, and we are exploring the universe. And that's where he came up with his setting, by just, like, extrapolating, okay, like, what's next? Well,
what's interesting about that is a lot of, Star Trek and things like that, a lot of the futurism that's present in like the 50s and 60s is kind of this utopian, technology will make our lives better, whereas now I think it's very easy to see no, technology can make our lives worse. And like you said, because we have advanced so much, there's nothing to kind of cast out that far in the future, and so fill it in.
You don't
with,
have to go that far. You just go back to the next generation. I mean, they had fucking iPads.
That is true.
iPad. Like the only difference between an iPad and the Star Trek is you can see through it.
Yeah.
If you can see through the iPad, if it's clear now, boom, then they've done it, and they're probably working on that shit now.
Yeah.
But I know that there is room for the dystopian, like technology is ruining our lives too.
Yeah.
But even that doesn't have the same, like...
It doesn't, but I think it's easier to do
level
right
of
now.
AI has taken over the world and destroyed us now, and our technology dominates us. Or Matrix level, type stuff. It's like, go out there. I think that's a good exercise and a good point of, like, if you're going to do science fiction, if you're going to do a science fiction-based game, if you're going to do, like, Mass Effect era, like, stuff... Like, don't just look around like, this is what we got now, so let's just put that in space, It's like, no, let's, like, shoot far out there, It's like, we have communicators now. They're just Bluetooth earpieces instead of, like, pinned to our chest. But they're pretty much the damn communicator, right? So, do that. That was in there. Then I went to the two guys from Andromeda. So, this was their fan panel. Later I went to their Kickstarter panel. So this was their fan panel. There's a drawing I have to look up that one of the two guys did called, like, Roberta Land, where he, like, openly mocked Ken and Roberta Williams, like, while working there. Like, but this cartoon was not supposed to get outside the company, but it did. It was basically like this fun land, like there's a roller coaster, which was like made to look like Ken Williams, and like Roberta was like selling tickets or something like that. And the thing was like, welcome to Roberta Land, the rides never change. Basically saying like King's Quest is always the same game over and over again. Or no, he said like the fun never changes. Right? That was like the tagline of Roberta Land and all that. So I need to check that out, because they were talking about that. I asked them, not in that panel. I don't think I asked them any questions in this panel. I think it was a different panel that I asked them at the Kickstarter panel of, like, what was worse? Working for Ken and Roberta Williams? Because, like, Ken was apparently very nonchalant about the state of the company. Like, he actually told Scott and Mark are the two guys. He actually told Scott one night, like, on his way out to the car, of, like, did you get your, you got your paycheck or something today? He's like, yeah, just running by to go cash that. And he's like, yeah, I would cash that tonight. See ya. And then he would just be like nonchalant about like that, of like this constant like,
I would cash that tonight.
CEO of the company. Yeah. So like he would just Scott was always like constantly stressed out, of like the state of the company. They always seemed to manage to take care of everyone and, even grow for a while, but it was always that. So after they talked a lot about that, I asked them, so what's worse, working for Ken and Roberta or working for the fans through Kickstarter? Because even though, it's Kickstarter, like they don't own anything, you are very much beholden to
You have to worry
fans.
about where that next check is coming from.
You kind of have that check, but, like, if you wrong the fans in any way, it'll be 10 times worse in public humiliation than anything that, on there. And he said, no, by far, he didn't say it was worse. He said it's scarier of the idea of failing the fans. Because if I have a problem with Ken, I could go in his office and just yell at him. And if I was wrong, well, I was wrong. But if I fail the fans, like, it may not work, it may not happen again. Like, that may be it.
You
like,
get no second chance.
Right. And so he said I thought that was pretty cool, pretty interesting. So, they did make some comment we've talked about in the past of no longer having named authors on the games anymore, like it's all studios. And they talked that both to being, it was the companies, like the companies didn't want to put names on boxes because then, they don't get famous, they can't go anywhere, that kind of thing. But also, like, the number of people on a title jumped massively up, and, you just didn't feel right putting your name on the box when there were more than just, 5 people working on it now. Now there was 30 or 40. But he did say, like, that does hurt you over time, right? Because you don't have a following. You're not a game designer. That was a Sierra game, not a Scott and Mark game, right?
Although I imagine 2 guys from Andromeda kind of dulls that a little bit. Like, it doesn't feel like you're personally taking credit, but you're building your own brand within the company's brand and within the franchise.
Yeah. They talked a lot about how supportive, the people they worked for and worked around and worked against, like Tim Schafer over at LucasArts and Rob Gilman over at LucasArts, he said, like, these guys were very inspirational, like, we loved Monkey Island, there were ideas I stole from that for our games, I think there were ideas he said he stole from Sierra Game, and it was, like, fun rivalry. And he was just like, the outpouring of support that they got when they launched their Kickstarter was impressive. Like, all these guys coming out and just saying, yeah, donate to these guys. And the Double Fine guys saying, donate to these guys. These are good guys. We're vouching for them and all that. That was excellent. What did he say? What was this on? What you need is for a successful indie, you need the passion to build it, to get you through the nights. A team for encouragement. Like, it can't just be you. You need 2 people at least, encouragement. And the endurance to market it. Like, when it's all said and done, you're done, like, to get out there and market it. Like, that was the formula of success for the indie. I think that was my question. I said, you guys have been doing this for a while, you're out there, what advice, do you have for the indie? They also said to watch stats, pay attention, get on top of the social media, and get on top of that. They discovered that Germany was their second biggest market.
Really?
Second to the US. They had no idea. None whatsoever. But now that they know that, they're making sure to have a German language port and embrace that. And, if you've got a community of fans out there, you need to jump on that. So, I thought that was excellent. Concept art and storyboarding, they said very important. Now, this was Mark, who is the artist. So it's a little, like, artist perspective. But he's like, if you can't build a demo to show, then you definitely need to have a storyboard and artwork showing everything of, like, how it all works and all it comes together. And then there was a lot of talk about just, like, ignoring the trolls. Just straight up, ignore the trolls. There'll always be somebody telling you can't, and it had a lot to do with, a lot resonated with me with the Hugh MacLeod Ignore Everybody book.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, just do it. Just don't listen to take constructive criticism, but if it's not constructive criticism, just ignore it. Just move on. There will always be somebody, and there's a lot of them on the internet, and they don't matter. They don't matter. They don't affect anything. However, he said they did have, I didn't know this, so their Kickstarter kind of like rocketed, and then slowed down, and then barely came across the finish line. And they raised $500,000, I think, is what they raised on it, so like $500,000. They were on pace to break $1 million, and all that slowed down because they had somebody actively slamming them. They had a guy, they didn't name names or anything, but apparently somebody wanted to hire Mark as an artist for his game studio, and he turned him down. And then basically he was like, well, then I'll make sure you never work again. And like was spreading all these lies and telling people they were going to get sued because they had all these IP infringement, claims against them, and basically doing everything he could do to create all this bad press during their Kickstarter. And it did impact it. I mean, it got funded, but they would have been like $750,000 or $1 million had that not happened. So that's kind of a unique situation, but
well, if you've been in the business for a while, there's probably always someone out there.
I think I asked them what was the one thing they were unprepared for, and it was like that. That was completely out of left field. We were not ready for that. I got more notes on their Kickstarter when I get to that, but then I went to a session on being a dungeon master, being a good dungeon master. This panel was filled with a whole bunch of guys who just wanted to talk about their own DMing experience, and me and John from Chainsaw Buffet, John Robbins, were in the back, and we were tweeting back and forth to each other, and we're in agreement of like, these guys are all shitty DMs, if in fact they are actually DMs, if they are not just pulling shit out of their ass, because they sound like the most annoying, punishing DMs ever.
People don't play with them long, is what you're saying.
There were some good things for constructing campaigns, though, that transfer to game development that came out of that. One is have several what he called pots. So, pots would be little, like you go to a town, and there's several places where you can do interactions. Each one of these is a pot. But they all, at the end of the little interaction or mini quest, point back to something's wrong with the mines. Right? So they're going to point the players to go investigate the mines where the goblins have taken over, right? But it doesn't matter how the players do it, because no matter which interaction in the town they go to, it ultimately is going to point them in the right direction. And then the players have a sense of discovery and freedom, and then there's a full world fleshed out, because wherever they went got kind of pointed, and that was the right path. And there wasn't like, I need you to talk to the old guy, the bum who keeps hassling you, because he's the only one that's going to tell you where to go next, right?
Right.
So I thought that was a good idea for game writing as well as dungeon master writing. Difficulty curves instead of escalation. We've hit this in the past, but basically have hard parts followed by easy parts, followed by hard parts, followed by easy parts, to give that roller coaster of, damn, that was hard, and then, oh my god, I'm powerful, and then, damn, that was hard, and I'm powerful, and, back and forth, versus an escalation, where each encounter is just progressively more difficult than the other. And they mentioned that as being like a true mark of a good campaign, of like, if you have this difficulty roller coaster happening, that is a much more refined and better campaign to play than just every encounter is harder than the last encounter. Oh, this was a D&D thing, but he basically, the guy that up there who had written a bunch of D&D, he was pretty well qualified to run this panel. He'd written a bunch of campaigns and such, and settings for D&D and things like that. But he hates skill challenges.
Skill checks?
Yeah, skill checks. They take D&D out of D&D. Basically, is what he said. I like it. It puts it down to a dice roll
instead of role playing.
Instead of role playing, right? So you come up to this cliff, and everybody does an athletics check to see if they can climb the cliff, rather than like they come to this cliff and then they just kind of invent reason, of like, oh well, I've got this rope and Will can swing it on the top and then help the little guy up first, and like they just kind of talk their way through it, and he's just like, the skill check does nothing because you're not going to stop them. You're never going to stop them from climbing the cliff. They have to climb the cliff.
Well, I think the value of the skill check is it determines if their idea works or not. And if it doesn't work, it forces them to try something else. It takes the ability for them to just go, whatever I do, I don't actually have to think about.
I think that was the intent.
Yeah.
The intent was just to have, like, here's these lists of skills, and then the DM could just, like, at any time go, okay,
before you're
do
gonna,
a check against athletics, and we'll see if that works, right?
That was one of the things I did.
But it became, like, if you read the campaigns, it's all hard-coded in the campaigns.
Well, especially 4th edition came up with the idea that skill checks could be a form of encounter. You've got combat encounters, and then you have non-combat encounters. Great for building balanced games, but not so great, like you said, for making the characters think outside the box.
Correct.
Just like, I have a huge bonus, so whatever I want to do athletically
the advantage of
is
Dungeons
done.
and Dragons over a computer game, right?
Yes.
Like, if you don't have that dynamic role-playing aspect, why are you doing D&D?
Although, as far as systems go, D&D has become more and more, like, very rules lawyery.
Are you saying 3rd edition is the MMOing of...
4th edition to a certain extent. 3rd edition, like, there were a lot of rules I felt were built for, like, the campaigns and things like that.
3rd edition to me felt like, oh, you guys looked at WoW and go, how do we make our game more like WoW?
Basically, well, 4th edition did, yeah. 3rd edition, I felt like it does level the playing field. There were a lot of other systems like...
I guess 3.5, really.
Yeah.
Is where I kind of thought that shift was happening.
3.0, 3.5, towards the end of 3.5, yeah, they definitely started getting into that, I think.
The last thing here I wrote was basically not to stop the plot by dice rolls.
Yeah.
So, like, if you have a critical plot moment, don't, like, put behind a charisma check that information.
Yeah.
Right? Like, make sure that's out there. And that's good advice for game developers, too. Like, if you have a game... Make sure the key story is out there, and that charisma checks and those kind of things, and the advanced and the skill checks, unlock some, like, bonus storytelling, or a little bit more subtext, but
side quests, or
don't, like, restrict the player from knowing the plot because they didn't have that attribute.
As a DM, that's
again,
always...
You want them to enjoy the story, not beat the game.
As the DM, I always have that problem where I know everything that's going on and I know all the motivations, how it connects together, that you forget that the players
That's
don't.
the joke that's been going around a lot on Giant Bomb, is like the whole like beat the game thing, like, oh, I beat the game, and they've been like, I beat The Walking Dead, because it's like you don't beat The Walking Dead. You finish The Walking Dead and then you cry, apparently. I haven't played The Walking Dead game yet, but it's The Walking Dead. Like, it's not going to end well. It's a whole bunch of just gut-wrenching decisions, and who's going to die? I have to decide. Fuck you, game, And it's like, yeah, so they're like, yeah, I beat The Walking Dead, It's like, yeah, it makes no sense. I went to a panel on self-publishing. This turned out to be pretty good, actually. I won the book in this thing, and then we ended up buying... I won the second book that she had written. We ended up buying the first book, but her book actually became a New York Times best-selling, and she's self-published.
Really?
So, still a quality author. She talked about print on demand. So if you're into that, Lulu is overpriced. They talked about CreateSpace and Lightning Source, I think. But Lulu, which kind of used to be the de facto for self-publishing, print on demand is overpriced for what they do. Apple Pages exports to EPUB. And it kind of just made me think of, like, how shitty Word is and, like, the features that Word gives you. It's like, yeah, why the fuck can't I just, in Word, go EPUB Kindle version? Like, why am I getting... what the fuck are you doing? Like, what features do you need to add to Word? You should be...
Yeah, save as EPUB.
Save as a, digital book.
I wonder if someone does not have a plug-in for that already and how much it costs.
Calibre?
Yeah, but that's a separate program.
It's a converter program, but basically that's what everybody uses. Everybody's like, that's awesome, that's what you get, that's what you use. So basically you get to EPUB with a lot of free stuff, pages or whatever, and then calibrate all the formats, and you put your book up everywhere because you're self-publishing and it costs you nothing. They made sure that like Kindle lets you link to the store, and something I thought was genius. The guy said, like, so at the end of his Kindle book, he puts the first chapter of another book in there, right? That he's cross-promoting. So you could just read it and say, oh, read my other book here right now. He also puts his first chapter free on the web to read, which I thought that'd be really cool for a game, just to, like, upload on the game website, like, watch a gameplay trailer of the first 30 minutes of the game. You know, that seems like it'd be a good equivalent of like, yeah, you have no idea what this is about, and I would like you to check out the trial, and I would like you to experience it, but clicking play right now will take no effort from you. And, you know, you might get a lot more people download it.
I imagine the chapter thing is a special case for books, though, because you get more invested
Well, what he said was,
like, watching someone else play.
Somebody was like, oh, but you probably have to write your first chapter as a cliffhanger. And he's like, yes. Oh, well, no, you want a cliffhanger at the end of the first chapter because you want them to read that and go, oh my God, I got to know what happens next. Let me go give you $4 and buy your book off Amazon and find out what happens next, right? But he's like, your first chapter should be a cliffhanger anyway. And, you know, the first level of a game should make you want to play the second level anyway. So I thought that would be a good idea. The other thing he does with his links to his other books, he's gone and filled out an Amazon referral account too. So not only does he get the money for you buying the book because he's the seller of the book, but then he also gets the referral account money through his affiliates account. And I was like, fucking genius, dude. That is awesome. Props, man. Work the system. They're still talking about like, yeah, you're not, like, they have day jobs, you know, like, the sole source of your income, they're not quite there yet. Pricing, he talked about too low is junk, too high, or too mid-tier pricing gets overlooked a lot, and, high is best. And, you know, an example, so for, like, books, under $5 is junk. What's wrong with that? That's crap. People aren't.
Physical books you're talking about.
Physical books, yeah.
Okay,
physical books. Not ebook pricing. Take about $5 down for everything on ebook pricing.
Right.
So $4 to $5 is junk. Why bother? Skip it. $8 to $10 seems like it should do well, but doesn't. Because people look at that and it's like, why is that not $15? What's wrong with that? $15 is a real book. It's a real book price for a real book. You know, here, I will buy your real book that you're selling because it's obviously $15, and I know that's a value a book should be. And the author, she had a tale of going to a con and selling her books. And an author beside her, who was much more experienced, much bigger fan base, much longer running series, in every way, shape, or form, she should have been outsold by her. And she didn't sell anything. And the woman running the panel, who I can't remember her name, I want to say it's like Lauren or something. I don't remember. You read her books. What's her name?
I don't remember. I was reading the books.
So
the books were good.
She was selling her books left and right, and she's like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Why are you selling your books left and right, and mine aren't selling at all? And they're both fantasy authors. Their tables are side by side. The same people come up and look at both, and then they buy yours. And my book is $8, and yours is $15. And she's like, that's why. There's something wrong with your book. Why is it $8? Why is mine $15? Clearly, it must be the better book, you know? And it's like there's a psychology to that, and I think some of that applies to games. The pricing might be a little different, but I think if you start looking at sub-$5 indie games, it's kind of like, oh, well, why isn't it worth it to charge a full indie price? You know, why is it not $9.99? Why is it not a $10 game? What's wrong with your game? Even though you think it's like, no, I'm just trying to be awesome because I'm a startup and I'm on there. There may be something to that. Unless you're on Xbox Live Indie Games, and fuck it, it's $1.
It's $1 or die.
She talked about handouts, and I don't think we can roll this over to games very well, but basically having those larger cards and having pamphlets to hand out with the first chapter. So, like, if you come up with the book, it's like, here, just take the first chapter.
Yeah, because
here's the first chapter for free. In fact, what the one guy did, too, this is the genius marketing guy with the affiliate links. He went to Dragon Con. He went to the panels with people in the long-ass lines and just passed out the very first chapter. And then, by the end of the con, people would be coming over like, yeah, man, I've been in lines the whole thing. I read your first chapter. You get this book? Can I buy this book? You know? I'm like, you fucking genius son of a bitch, mad dog. I love you. I love you, man. That is awesome. You know? Like, at the worst, you get some, like, con garbage, right? You're like, people are always giving you stuff at the con,
yeah,
right?
I've gotten a lot of those flyers for books. I'm kind of like,
yeah, but he's giving you the whole first chapter.
Anything.
And you're sitting in the panel waiting for the Serenity panel, waiting to see, you know, what's her name? Forget her name. The chick from Serenity.
Which one?
Which one?
And Well, the popular one. And then she was in like
That's not describing
Terminator,
it.
and then
Oh, the
Oh,
she's been in
Summer
a lot of
Glau.
stuff. Yeah, Summer Glau. Yeah, so you're waiting to see her. So of course you got to wait in line half the day, and you're like, you know what? Fuck it, I'll just start reading this, and it's genius. You may not like it, but he doesn't care, right? And the investment in putting the first chapter on some pamphlets versus the return,
Yes.
like that's awesome. Plus,
Especially in context.
in context, and the author's there, and he'll sign your book, so you feel good about it. So I thought that was genius. And then again, like free first chapter anyway, I said that a second ago, free on the website. Because also, if people come to your website and they buy it directly through your website, you're not giving anyone a cut.
all monies.
Yeah, it's all your money. So having the free first chapter on your website and then saying on the Amazon page, hey, my chapter's free, free first chapters on the website, gets them off of Amazon to your site, where they can buy it there and not pay Amazon. And then her next book, like, I wasn't interested in reading her current one. I may read it, because I've heard it's really good from several people, and then Cicely read it, said it was good, too. And it is kind
What's
of
the
younger
genre?
audience targeted, too, is it, would you say? I want to say she said that. I want to say she said...
It seems like late high school. I know the character's like 19, 18, 19.
Yeah, like
but
it was like... It was more of like Harry Potter, real, legit, like... real-ish, not like pandering to children. This is going to be more...
No, this is a kid that's gone through therapy several times, apparently, in the recent years. And is trying to get her life back.
But her next book, she basically said she was working on getting close to putting out, was going to be Pride and Prejudice, 3,000 Years in the Future and in Space. And I went, oh, fuck, I just want to buy that now.
And in space?
Now, let's go. You're having it 3,000 years, but then in space, fuck, let's go. Let's do it.
Well, if it happens 3,000 years in the future, it better be in space. Otherwise, why are you setting it 3,000 years in the
Exactly,
future?
right?
Post-apocalyptic
Well, unless you just want to
future.
have, like,
That's 100 years at most.
a mutant race now lives with us or something. Kickstarter. Oh, so I went to the Kickstarter panel, again with the two guys from Andromeda. Basically, Chris Pope. Well, first of all, I got to corner Scott Murphy. Because, like many panels at GMX, the room wasn't ready or set up in time. And so they were hanging out, killing time, and I was standing next to Scott Murphy, and so I just kind of started talking to him, and I mentioned, the Kickstarter and how they did the Facebook thing. Because remember we talked about it, I said, like, they had that web page, and like, hey, we're getting back together and thinking about making a game,
Yes,
and like us
I
on
remember
Facebook,
that.
and they were like, yeah, in 2 weeks there's a Kickstarter, which there was. And I mentioned that, and I mentioned how we kind of cover it. And I'm always, like, not mentioning GameMarx. I'm like, yeah, we run an indie podcast, a podcast for indie developers. If they ask what the name is, then I will say. But I don't want to come off of like, will you mention GameMarx? No. So I'm like, but this is why I know this. This is why I cover this. And knew that you guys did
Did
this.
they ask?
No, I don't think
Oh.
they did.
Oh, well.
Well, I did joke with Chris Pope, Space Pope. I did joke with him because he had a social media panel before, this panel. I didn't go to that, but one of his things he mentioned in the Kickstarter panel was like, he was always telling people have a podcast. So I did
Really?
say, yeah, like in social marketing and all that, like get a podcast, get together with some friends and do a podcast. It's so easy to do, Basically, he's talking about like, self-promotion and doing
Yeah.
that and how he's going to give.
It's just another way.
So I
people
opened my
can-
question with him of like, I already have a podcast, and on that podcast we talk Kickstarters, and so we talked about this. So I did get some good thing about him. Funny thing is, like, Scott Murphy gets going, man. He gets going. Like, when he starts talking, like, you gotta tap out, man. You're like, I need a break, dude. I need to take a breath. I've not been saying a word, but you get going. And it's funny, because, like, Mark will just interrupt him. So, like, Mark will just, like, cut him off of, like, yeah, I think we should answer the guy's question. I think we should, like, bring this back and...
Yeah, you went off on a tangent. I am derailing this tangent.
But Chris Pope basically was the wrangler. He is the wrangler for the two guys. He ran the media book. He ran the media campaign. They knew him. Scott knew him, brought him on, introduced him to Mark, and said, like, I think he can do this for us, and we can do this thing. So, I think that was really cool in that they reached out and went to somebody and said, yeah, we do need a social media expert. So So he had a lot of things on there. I think, again, don't feed the trolls. Leverage fans to get out your story. So basically, empower the fans. And what they did was they... it sounds a little dirty, but at the same time, you got to understand, they had somebody actually attacking them negatively during their Kickstarter. They went to their forums, their top posters, and they contacted those people directly, and they just said, what'd they call them? Like, you guys be the Space Pigs, the Elite Space Pigs or something. They gave them like a little name, a little group. But basically, they had these guys on a mailing list. And anytime somebody would like the negative trolls would start dominating the comments on the Kickstarter, they would send out the email, and these guys would come in and change the subject. Not argue with these people. They would come in and they say, oh man, are you going to have this? And then the next time they would come like, oh yeah, that was awesome. Then I remember that. And then that was that. And then like Scott or Mark could come in and answer and like, yeah, we're totally going to have that. But the whole like negative guy of like, oh, your games were crap and you're ripping off this and you're going to get an IP lawsuit and blah, 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 is now buried. So it sounds a little crafty, but at the same time, I think that's not, I can't say that's a bad
what you
thing.
want. That's what you want your community to do anyway. So it's
you're just kind of,
it's a gray
area. The creepy
area.
part is like asking the community to do that.
Yeah.
But they did self-select, and they did not like just blatantly post, please everyone do this. They were like, we need you to be quiet about this because, you know, it'll be wrong, but you guys are like, you know, our top fans and we want to thank you for all of this. So please, you know, all that. And again, they didn't come in and argue with the guy or target the guy because Apple's been known to do that. Apple's been known to keep a list of bloggers and tech journalists who are Apple loyalists, basically.
Yeah.
And anytime somebody wrote something bad on Apple, Steve Jobs would send out an email of like, please shut this guy down. And then there would be 18 blog posts and news stories pop up saying why this guy's wrong. Immediately. You know?
It seems like if they were claiming something like IP lawsuits and things like that, they could send out like the facts. And that way, you could arm your top people, but
I like the way they did it better. I like we just haven't changed it.
That actually seems less dirty. Because,
it does. It does seem a little bit cleaner. Then
it's not propaganda.
During your Kickstarter, plan updates, but have all the big stuff up out front. Don't save any big reveals late in the Kickstarter. Just get it all out up front, and then just have reasons to give updates, reasons for people to write it. They also said, remember that Kickstarter is a community of itself, and help other projects, you know? Support other projects, mention them, scratchbacks, basically. It is a community of it on its own. So they said, you know, they did not have a game idea, and they leaned on the Double Fine approach of using their names to get that, and that did not work. And they basically had to get up a game design idea on the site ASAP before the Kickstarter was over because, you know, like that apparently is going to be a rare exception where somebody can come in and say, I'm Tim Schafer, want to make a game, give me money.
Yeah.
That's not going to work even if you're the two guys from Andromeda and you have the Space Quest and you say, you know, you want to do something like that.
I think probably because Tim Schafer he's released so many games in so many different eras, you know.
Yeah.
Space Quest is for older gamers. So.
They talked about following back, friending fans, retweeting them. Like, be active in your own fan base. If your fans out there talking the game, retweet them, comment back, say thank you. You know, social media makes it so easy for you to reach out and communicate with them, and they get such a big, you know, euphoric awesome boost out of like, oh my god, you know, the guys from Andromeda talked back to me and they acknowledged me and they retweeted me, that you leverage that, you know, like say thanks to your fans. That pays off. They did. Chris Pope said that yes, they specifically pre-launched the news before the Kickstarter, so they'll let the fans know. So, like, all the major sites that covered, that were fans of the previous stuff, they contacted, and they got news stories going that way, and they got the Facebook page up so they get covered in the main press. But really, like, Kickstarter saturation had already kicked in, and the mainstream press was like, we're not fucking covering anything to do with Kickstarter again. You know, it's like, we're just getting bombarded, we're sick of it, we're done with it. And it's like, these guys had been planning their Kickstarter. I think they said they planned their Kickstarter for like 6 months to get it all together and everything in place. And then for all this to happen, it made it look like they were trying to cash in on like the Double Fine shit when they'd been planning since before the Double Fine stuff to do their Kickstarter. So that totally worked though, because while there wasn't a lot of press for their Kickstarter, there was a lot of press on the pre-announcement news, and then all the fans knew, and they friended us on Facebook. So when we announced a Kickstarter, we got to our fans. We got the message out among the fans. Oh, I love advice. Basically, because I asked them, the "what did you not see coming" question, and you will always ship late, and you will always need more money. Count on it. That was something that they said. They didn't say it like that. That was just, they were kind of rambling and all that, but I just that was a choice quote. And they also said, we don't look at it as we hit 500,000. We look at it as we got to 350. But basically they have a lot of experience doing games, so they know that. And Kickstarter is very stressful. They did not take the advice of others. As far as it's going to be stressful, it's going to be an endurance run. You're going to have to pace yourself because you're going to non-stop for 45 days or whatever, deal with that. And they basically said, like a little kid, sometimes you just got to put your hand on the stove till it's hot, right?
Yeah.
Rewards, we've heard this before. Stick with digital as much as you can. There's a cost. So I think they put the t-shirts in at like a $75 or $100 level, which I agree with, and we've talked about that in the past. What did I write here? Oh, they did not realize that Amazon payments, when a card fails, they charge a fee for the failure, and then they retry daily. And every day you get hit with that fee. And they had a $10,000 backer whose card was having trouble because it was overseas. And it's like the money was there, and he was calling the bank, and it was something screwed up.
$10,000?
But basically, they lost $250 in fees from this automated Amazon system that they're on the hook for. Because it's not them doing it, it's through Kickstarter, and they don't really have control on it. But yeah.
What's the story behind a $10,000 backer?
Oh, he was just a high-level backer. I mean, it's just like, you can back $10,000.
Oh, I know, but that's like...
That's the high tier, that's the high reward.
Okay.
That's the highest reward tier you can have. That's not that uncommon on the big names. Take donations on the site. After Kickstarter ends, basically, so have your own website. Continue to do pre-sales on the site. Told you the fans are scary. There's more anxiety than working for Ken and Roberta Williams. Playable demo. So they worked a lot of effort into having a downloadable playable demo available. I didn't realize this. This must be something they added. The superfans loved it, but it really didn't pay off. It didn't convert a lot of people, and it actually hurt them because they did a demo, a mock-up in HTML5 because they could do it quickly and get it up there, and then everybody could play it. And then there were just some people who were like, we are not going to back you because we will not support HTML5 games. There's a whole free-to-play backlash and all that. And I was like, that's not what we want. That's not what we want to support. And it's like, well, we're not doing an HTML5 game. We're doing a downloadable executable. This was just a prototype. So they would not do that again. They said that was not worth it.
I imagine if you did do a whole downloadable game, you're dealing with installers. And
the other advice they had for other Kickstarters was at pledge levels, allow users to vote on content, but not decide content. So they see Kickstarters was and you get to write a character or a mini quest. It's don't do that. But maybe allow them to you will get asked to vote or shape the decision, through forum polls on that. So that really wraps up the notes that I took at GMX on that. Anything, I know, again, you spent a lot of time in media room.
I can't think of any. I didn't go to as many panels, and I didn't even take notes on the ones I did go to, so not really.
finally played Cards Against Humanity. That is
Did you play it at? Did you see it at GMX or did you?
Yeah, I played it at GMX for the first
Okay.
time. I had not played it before, and I was actually just sitting down at a table. My daughters spent a lot of time in the analog gaming room, and so I would just kill time by sitting at an empty table in there. And some people were like, "We really need 6. 6 is awesome for Cards Against Humanity." And do you mind playing? I'm like, I've never played, and I kind of do want to check that out. Yeah.
Have you played Apples to Apples
No.
before? Okay.
But I've heard a lot of people talk about Cards Against Humanity, so I kind of knew what that was going to be without playing it. Like, I've listened to panels where the creators of Cards Against Humanity have done live new cards. Like, they've taken card ideas from the audience and tested them out live. So I kind of had an idea of how it worked. And, it takes like a second to learn what it goes on. But also hilarious to play with, like, complete strangers. Like, people who do not know each other, and then you're just into crazy, wrong, horrible humor. Bought it off of Amazon. I got it here, and I've called my parents and get my brother over and bring his girlfriend so that we can have, like, a game night. It'll go fine mostly through my family. His girlfriend is mostly there to have the innocent, shocked one. Because, like, I think it's more
Does he
fun.
know this?
Yes.
Yes. My brother knows it.
He knows that you're using her for effect.
Told him.
Yeah. I told her explicitly, like, she needs to be there. Like, this will be good, this will be fun, but really, to have her there, the idea of her having to read the cards, and then her having to pick one,
Oh, man.
like, it's more enjoyable if you have the innocent virginal sacrifice, than just... Because my mom will kind of be that way at the start, but then after a drink or two, she's into it, so my whole family's that way. That's not going to be...
The funny thing is, Apples to Apples gets that way. Can get that way if you're playing with the right group of people where, you say something positive, you play the card you're playing against is like a positive adjective or something like that, and then you play, the Holocaust or something horrible that is clearly not.
Is Apples to Apples have the Holocaust as a card?
I don't know, but it has stuff like that. It has natural disasters, and it just has a wide range of
Oh, okay. I thought
nouns.
that was more of like a
stuff.
kid's game.
There is a kid's version. It doesn't have anything R-rated, but you can kind of make wrong connections.
Oh, okay.
basically.
Because, Apples to Apples, the name made me think like that's... Like, I think we have it. I
We
think
have it. It's
sitting-
over there.
Yeah, it's been sitting over there forever. Like, I've never had a desire... Did you buy it for us?
I don't think so.
Okay. I don't know if that was a Christmas gift that you might have gotten us
I
at some
think
point.
Rachel asked for it one year, but I don't remember.
I don't remember her asking for that.
But I bet you can mix them together.
Mix the decks?
You had asked about that on Twitter. I bet that would work.
Or at least mix, like, the blanks cards with the word cards or something. Like the word cards from Humanity, Cards Against Humanity, with the phrases from Apples to Apples. Although I haven't played Apples to Apples, so I don't know.
It's like adjectives and nouns, basically.
Yeah, I don't think I got to play a whole lot. I did some videos. They're up on the YouTube site. Some gameplay videos. I don't know if you are planning, Dylan, to do any...
Not offhand. I kind of have to think about... I'm really not playing anything right now, so... Yeah.
I mean, I plan to also play things sight unseen and just kind of out loud first impressions. But, again, just go ahead and get to be myself as a developer because, the focus, the audience, I don't have to, like... I'm playing this as a review or as a quick look. Like, no, I'm a developer, so I'll make developer-ass comments that will make no sense except to other developers.
I really need to sit down and kind of pick ones. I have to play around. I think I'll have to play
There's also
around
an excuse
with
to go
it.
through that entire backlog on Steam and
Yeah.
check out all these indies and like, see what I think on them. And I do plan to start firing up the Final Fantasy playthrough and get that going. The first ones I did, I just picked ones that I have developer reasons for highlighting. Like I like this game or this game versus that game type thing. Comparing and contrasting and type stuff like that. So probably do more of them. I didn't do a good job because we're not set on our site for posting YouTube videos. Like we're set for posting Blip TV videos. and I think I'm going to just pull us all out of Blip, and make sure we're 100% in YouTube and just, let the Blip expire. And I think Blip does better quality, but at this point, YouTube, we're getting more views on, and Blip would publish to YouTube, but
it's an extra step.
It's an extra step, and when I get our site moved over to WordPress, that seems just easier. Seems like I should be able to just go over WordPress YouTube plugin, and then be able to schedule posts on WordPress and schedule tweets and be all back up on that. So since I didn't do that, kind of just manually did one post and threw up 4 videos at once and all that, I can get a lot of views on them. Not as many as I think I could have got if I had actually timed that and rolled that out throughout the week and all that, but maybe a bit before I get that going. I need to go back and finish our site move to WordPress. Although after Bluehost fucking us over today, I'm glad I didn't do that.
That's scary, yeah.
Now the irony was, at the same time, our DNS company is in New York, and at the same time that was going on, they're saying, obviously they're on limited power data and generators and all that, trying to keep the data center up and running, but then they said it looked like they had a denial of service attack hit the DNS server, or something too, so they're kind of investigating that, but they were down for an hour or two as well, and that did take GameMarx and Xbox Indies offline. The Bluehost bullshit did, because we're hosted in Azure. That's kind of what my tweets were to one of our Microsoft evangelists about, we're not going to be able to host my DNS in Azure. It's like, oh, you could run a VM. It's like, I don't want to fucking run a VM just for DNS. That's price overkill.
I was running DNS on my Linux VM for a while, and I was just I don't see the point of this. I'm not, I don't have any backup, whereas Namecheap, I think, does, so...
Yeah, so, I buy my names through 1&1. I host them with Tsunami, which is RMU hosting. And then the sites are hosted through Bluehost. And I like keeping all the interests separate, because it makes it easy to move any one component at any time. If I don't like 1&1 and I want to go to Namecheap, then I can do that and not affect my hosting at all, because they'll be the same name servers no matter who is answering the who is query. And if I want to change name servers, then I can do that without having to change registrars and yada yada. And my hosting, I can shut down my hosting account and move it without worrying about domain propagation.
Just from experience from moving hosts, I would never get a domain name from the people you're hosting with, because you may want to completely...
And thank God I did, because... So what happened is we had a website for rocks that we're not even using. I've set the domain to expire. I'm we're not going to use that. And we are going to do rocks, but we're not going to do a domain for each game anymore. And I've been consolidating them under funkworks.com. And so I set the domains to expire. But what happened in the last week or so is a spammer got a hold of the forums that we had set up, which were just BB Press forums, and there must have been some exploit or some way they were able to mass create accounts and mass start filling the forums with spam, and they filled the database to 4 gigabytes, which is still fine in hosting terms, but now the MySQL server was taking too long on the queries, and so they shut down all of our sites without notice. And the email they just sent was, you have 15 days or we're just going to shut down all your shit and delete everything. And that was all I got. You have violated terms of service, we're shutting everything down, you have 15 days. And so I was calling them, basically I called the number, I saw the email, I'm just getting back in the office, and I saw the email, I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm not even at my desk yet. So I'm calling the guy, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why is the site down? He's like, well, I can't tell you because, you need to prove who you are first, right? Yeah. And I'm like, fine, whatever. Michael.neal@gmail.com, whatever. He's like, well, I need your last 4 letters of your password, which was fucked up that they would even ask for that. Because that means at some level, some amount of my password is clear text.
Yep.
Should not be, in any case, under any situation, should that be done. And I'm like, that doesn't even matter, though. Because my password is all done through password safe. It's a random generated gobbledygook of strings. I got no fucking clue what that is. And I tell him that. I'm like, there's no way I could ever know that, right? I don't ever see it, right? So he's like, all right, what's the last four of your credit card used to purchase the account? I'm like, I don't have that with me. That card is not with me, and plus I don't carry credit cards in the where I work anyway. I don't carry a wallet. I can carry credit cards, but not allowed to have a wallet. So I don't have the wallet with me, but that was done on the credit card, not the debit card, credit card. And like I don't have that with me right now. Like, that's not something that's with me. Ask me something else, and it's like, that's all we can do. Or, like, you can go into the control panel and make up this pin or something in some area, and then we can use this pin. And, like, I don't have that set up. I don't know if
you don't remember the password, you can't get in.
Well, I mean, I would have to Dropbox down my login shit, because I'm at work and everything. There'd be a lot of steps to go in to log in. And meanwhile, the site's down, and I have no idea where the data is or why. All I've got is, like, terms of use violation, and I'm thinking, like, what the fuck? Like, we don't host any video from you guys. The podcast is not there. So, like, if you think, like, if somebody complained about our podcast, right? GameMarx is not hosted on their servers, and then the podcast is stored on Azure data storage. So, fuck you. It's not on your servers anyway, and it's also bullshit. And that's not the way the DMCA takedown works. You don't just shut everything down. But I don't get a reason, right? And then so finally I told him, look, you sent a fucking email. Send me a fucking email that, and I am swearing at this point. I am actually saying this because I'm pretty pissed, because I told him, look, just give me the manager. Just give me your manager. Let me talk to the manager about this stupid policy, because I don't have anything I want to answer on what's going on. And you can ask anything else. Phone number, address, like, shoot down the list, dude. But, password you should be asking to begin with, and I don't have a credit card with me right now. He told me no. I said, no, give me your manager. Then no, I will not give you my manager. Yeah, that's it. It's like, what do you do at that point? Like, yeah, I refuse to give you the manager. And I told him, I got his name, Nicholas, and I'm like, Nicholas, just trust that I'm going to be sending an email to more than just you, okay? When I get this off and I start fucking around trying to set up this goddamn pin and all this bullshit, figure out what's going on, and you guys have no fucking clue what you do over there, and, run this shit show, just let you know that I asked for a manager and you refused. Like, that's not an option, dude. That is not an option that you make it. You just hand it off to the manager. Why would you say no? Like, they asked for the manager. I said, look, it's the same policy, and he said he wanted to see the manager.
I mean, from
again.
the other side, the manager is who you get to deal with the unruly customer that you can't, can't yell at. The manager can.
Exactly.
Like, the manager can shut down someone who's being unreasonable.
Exactly. I mean, you do the stupid shit of just, like, hold the phone. Hello, this is the manager. Like, if you want to play that shit, play that shit. But, yeah, that really, and that just set me off. That really set me off. I was like, no, the fuck, And we're in this for a 2-year hosting deal. So we got another year of hosting with these motherfuckers, right? Paid. Okay?
How much did you pay for this?
I think it was a couple $100 for the 2 years.
Okay, because this was like the WordPress hosting. This
Yes.
was like the first. Okay, yeah.
And so I told him, I'm like, look, you can send the email and say the site and shit was down, then send me my email of why. You can send that. And he said, yes, I can do that, because you can obviously send the one, you can send the other. And then I got this email that basically says, like, hey, this query was taking all this time, and we, needs to be optimized or fixed or something. But then it starts going on to it like, you need to cache your site and write your queries better, and then it starts getting, like, real accusatory, and then it actually says shit in there like, database optimization is not just for some sites, it's the best practice, and you should always do it, and stop saying that it's not. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I think what it is somebody copied a bullshit forum post and sent that, of, like, explaining the issue.
Wow.
Because it's like, I didn't know the issue, so at no point was I arguing that database optimization was not important. In fact, if the dude would have just told me on the phone, well, this database is 4 gigs, I'd be like, what? What's fucking 4 gigs? How is that possible? Nothing I'm doing should even be close. This runs my wife and my daughter's blog, and 2 sites we've never even finished. All right, that's all that's on here. Okay, what this Rock's game shit? I've expired the domain. Delete it. Turn it back on. We'd have been done. It'd have been resolved. In fact, if you would have done the right fucking thing, which was, hey, we have a problem. Email me, call me, whatever. Send an email. We've got a problem. We stopped logins to your database here. You need to fix this. Something's wrong, but it's taken on the database server. That'd be fine. Not suspend and shut down the entire account with terms of service violation crap and put up the big nasty, on all of our sites, oh, they're in trouble, banner and all this shit.
I remember, I had a similar problem with open hosting where someone had gotten into my Linux VPS, and I knew nothing about, I don't know anything about, securing a virtual server, but they actually worked with me. Part of the problem was I was on one of their old servers, and they wanted to upgrade me to a new one.
That's fine, because at the end of the day, if BB Press had an exploit I didn't patch or whatever, dude, I'm sorry, I apologize, my fault, my bad. Yeah. But your response is not warranted, and not helpful, and it's bullshit. It's like, this is not the way companies should act, that you just don't suspend everything and then tell me if in 15 days we're just fucking deleting everything. Did
you find out that it was a spammer, or did they tell you it was a spammer?
No, I found out it was a spammer. So I got the email about the database, and then I go in 4 gigs is bullshit. Now I can't log into the website.
Admittedly, they're not in
the database.
Yeah.
That's the fucked up part. I can still get into the database, I can still get into my control panel, even though they just basically put up a web page that blocked it. So the first thing I did is I deleted the website. Download the website, delete the domain, delete the website, and then told them, all right, all that shit's deleted. And the site's gone. Turn it back on now. Right? And I told them their fucking backups, which I paid extra for, are not working because I'm trying to download the backups and I can't fucking download the backups. That's all I want to do. I want to get in there and download the backup of the database, and then offline I will figure out what it was, right?
Right.
But finally I just ended up connecting a PHP MyAdmin to it and browsing the tables that were bloated, and then just saw oh, this is the BB Press, and this is the thread forum, and I can just see all the Viagra, all this shit. This is a spammer. They're in there, and oh look, the WordPress users table is also bloated. So they're probably making WordPress accounts and then posting underneath them and oh shit, fuck, that's what they got in there, and they did. But then I also saw that this shit only blew up within about a week or so, because their monthly backup, the database was 1 gig. Their weekly backup, the database was 2 gigs. And on the daily one, it's 4 gigs. So you can see this shit just rapidly exploded. And it's you guys had no audit. I put this back on the email. It's there's some blame on here, but you guys have no checks. Basically you allow a server to crash before you'll find out something's wrong with it. How long has Rock's game been sitting there? Since we set it up.
Yeah.
It was like a Tumblr or something before that. So it's been there for the entire fucking time. You should have an alert that the database that was nothing went to 4 gigs in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Something's going on.
In fact, I can't remember the issues I had with open hosting. They were hey, we've been seeing all these network connections outgoing.
I managed to download the database, pull it down, site's gone, then I sent another email, now the database is gone. Get this shit online now. Go to a meeting, it's come back, and I come back and it's still not up, and I fucking call back, and I got Nicholas again. And he's like, yeah, well, how do you know this? I'm like, yeah, this is Mike, Funkworks. And he's like, can you spell that? I'm like, FUNC works. Talked to you earlier, you probably should remember it. And then, the ticket came up, and this is when I know, I got, a nasty gram written on my ticket, because, the ticket came up, and, pulling it up, one moment, sir, oh, I do remember talking to you earlier. Yeah, because you got, dude was a dick on the phone, probably, on your ticket. And I'm like, I've sent you email, I filled out your support tickets, I've deleted the site, that was 2 hours ago, why is it not back online? When is this shit going to take online? You can take this down immediately, because I was on our sites this morning before you took it down, and then you took it down over lunch, right? And, so you could take it down that fast, you could damn well sure put it back. And he got it on there, and then, he was getting it. Basically, I stayed on the phone. Like, oh, yeah, I can get that immediately done. Like, good. I'm waiting. Like, I'm not hanging up. This needs to be on. And granted, like, again, it's Cicely's blog. She hasn't posted since July.
Yes.
Rachel hasn't posted in a year. Funkworks website's never been done. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm still pissed at the whole, like, no, you can't talk to my manager.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's how that ended. And probably when it's up, I'll just move all this shit. It's all WordPress anyway.
Yeah.
Suck it down,
portable.
Move it, and then go somewhere else. If we just don't all put it into Azure, because now there's a ton of shit free sites or something you can get with Azure, like 10 free sites or something.
Yeah, so long as I think it's like you use MySQL, and it's basically set up so you can run WordPress
exactly.
and things like that.
Run WordPress on Azure sounds fucking great to me. Anyway, let's talk about news.
Anyway.
Hey, Windows Phone. That's a thing. That happened. So, yeah, Microsoft had this big Surface announcement, and then they have the build thing this week, and then it's fucked up. They had like 2 keynotes. One keynote for Windows 8 and Surface with Ballmer, and Sinofsky was not there, actually. And then they had another keynote for the phone. And
this
Ballmer
is sort of
wasn't there.
symbolic.
It is. It's weird. It's like we're not getting along. Like, mommy and daddy are fighting, and they won't come out on stage together and, like, check out our new tablets, check out our new phones, It's like, no. They're completely separate. It was horrible in the way that the phone team would talk, and I watched some of the other build streaming stuff, and they would not just come out and say, it doesn't run WinRT. Like, they would talk around it, but not say it. That Surface apps will not run on the phone, and vice versa. And that's pretty fucked up. It's pretty fucked up because it's going to get out, and now it's going to be a bad message. Instead of being like a upfront marketing, here's the way this works, here's what you get, it's going to be a horrible consumer experience. It's going to be somebody getting a Surface tablet and expecting to run their phone apps, and it's not working. So there's that. The blog that I'll link to is where they have the new SDK. The big thing in the SDK is that they've exposed the C++ native bits. I don't know how much of that is native and how much of that is p-invoke native type shit. But just know it's not the WinRT C++. It's a different C++. So, really, it's a C++, I think it's always been on the phone, just you weren't allowed access to it before. Because of that, on the SDK, Sean Hargraves has a post I'll link up going more into details of what that provides for game developers as far as what DirectX features on there and programmable shader models and all that. So if that's your bag, you definitely want to read Sean's article. But because of this native that they finally opened up, now they have support from Unity and all the major vendors for Phone 8, Windows Phone 8, basically. So you got Unity, Havoc, Marmalade, Coco's 2D, which is my favorite one because that's an iPhone gaming framework. SharpDX, of course. Ogre, FMMod EX, Autodesk Scaleform, a couple others, Adobe PhoneGap, AppMobi, and GameMaker all have announced support for Phone 8. So that's good in that it's fucked up in that, like, yeah, the way to write for Microsoft's devices is not to use Microsoft Framework. Right? But this gives some portability to, like, if you write your game in Unity, you can hit everything. Also announcing at the same time, kind of related, Sunburn made it official. We talked about this a lot in our rumors when we did ads for Sunburn at the top of the show in our rumor segment. But yeah, all that was true. We were not lying. That was true. But now Sunburn basically allows you to compile XNA code. Right now, you can compile it to the desktop, Metro, Modern, WinRT, essentially, Surface tablets. Xbox 360, Phone 8, Phone 7, 7.5, and iOS is included in future support going. I don't think they've put up bits yet. Bits have not been released for that, but essentially 2.1 is a free update. So if you have any versions of Sunburn, you're good. And essentially, the engine runs on top of the platform API, which then calls whatever native platform is of the system. So you're writing to an abstracted API that will then be DirectX, XNA, WinRT, or WinForms, depending on where it's running. I don't know why WinForms. It's in their bubble chart. Maybe they just needed 4 to make it round out and look nice. Looking for some good news on that in the future. More news. So Zynga laid off 100 people. Do you know when Zynga laid off these 100 people?
Wasn't this right after the Apple keynote?
It was during the Apple keynote.
Wow.
Yeah. Like they thought people wouldn't notice or something. So of course they made the story 10 times worse because it's like, did Zynga just try to hide the layoff of 100 people in the keynote? Yeah.
I don't know, with all the keynotes this week, I'm surprised, they didn't just, shut the company down at some point.
They should have waited and done it like everybody else after Friday, after 5, this is the normal procedure, but nope. So where they've come from is still kind of up, and Zynga's not commenting yet, but they're publicly traded, so they will at some point have to make known this information. I expect Zynga to buy themselves back. I expect Zynga to start buying back its own stock and take itself private. I expect that to be the next thing to happen.
Yeah, that may not be a good choice for the major shareholders, though, considering where it's going.
You're already a shareholder of Zynga. If Zynga wants to buy back your stock, then you at least have one person who wants to buy that stock.
Yeah, well, I mean, it may not be good for the company.
As opposed to... Well, the thing is, if they go back to private investors, every little news story is not going to slam their investment.
That
you
is
can
true.
Shake off a little bit of it. So maybe they can do some more rapid changing and refocusing their company without, the stock price tanking. But if they go under, so be it. It's funny, right after that, to read an article by this Tantalus CEO. Basically, he laid off, he did some Mass Effect Wii U port or something, I think, and he was like, you can't have job stability. The game company is too volatile, you have to, hire people when you need them and then lay them all off when you don't. And I think Tim Schafer came out and said some shit about that's bullshit. You don't build any sort of knowledge at your company, right? You don't build developers who are experienced working as a team. You don't build the things that make you more efficient and better. You just become a horrible cycle of crap game after crap game.
Yeah. Although that seems to work for a lot of
And I
companies.
also hate it or find it horrible when somebody who does this practice comes out and says no, that's the only way. I know we're killing children in the back, but dude, that is the only way this could be done, and you just don't understand how games are made, right? Apple said, what fucking Surface? Here's an iPad mini. Also, here's an iPad 4. If you bought an iPad 6 months ago, fuck you. We don't care. The 4 is more like a 3.5. I think it's a small bump enough to justify a release, so they can get it on a holiday cycle, I think is what they were doing. And I think when the iPad launched, they didn't want to encroach upon iPhone sales, but now they just want to get it to a holiday launch.
Yeah.
I think the iPad mini is going to sell a shit ton. And I think it's going to continue to boost games, and it's going to be a great gaming platform. It's going to be interesting what the tablet market is going to look like in next year 4 or 5 months from now, how all this new shit shakes out. The new tablet's being released. The Google has a decent tablet, I think, finally in its Nexus tablet or something.
Yeah, I think it's going to be getting like the larger form factor. It's really interesting that Apple, I see this as kind of a reaction to the rest of the tablet market, which is not necessarily a knock on Apple. It's just that the tablet market has matured, that, Apple is no longer the only one leading the way. So
well, I think they're the only one leading, but I think there is pressure in more like Kindle Fires, I think, than anybody else for the smaller form factor. Interesting that they kept 4x3. They kept their 4x3 aspect ratio. I kind of want one. I do. I kind of want an iPad mini. I think that would be handy to have, because it is kind of more of a gaming content consumption device.
Yeah.
The iPad is not bad for that, but the mini just seems like, just a little bit smaller, and this would be decent. This would be easy to slip in my bag and take, and not be as large as a laptop, essentially. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes, and more importantly, how that ding Surface and everything. Microsoft relented. We covered this a few weeks ago. Microsoft was not allowing mature rated and 18 plus for European games on Windows 8 Store, and they basically said, "Oh, never mind. We want those games. Those are good games. Those are games we want. We want to have those games." So now they're just blocking the adults only, the porn rating.
Which is basically what I guess every other.
Yeah, it's pretty much blocked everywhere. This was interesting. The ESRB. And the PEGI system in Europe already had this, but the ESRB in the US is launching a no-cost game rating service for digital markets. Right now, I think it's limited to PSN, XBLA, Vita, Nintendo eShop, Wii, and Windows 8 stores. Hopefully they'll expand it to iOS and Xbox Live Indie Games and Steam. But basically, it's the same thing. It's developers go in, and you sort of self-qualify for a rating on your game by filling out a questionnaire. So you go in there, and you answer all these questions about what your game does not have, and then at the end, you have a rating you can use. So it's self-rated 18 mature, which I think most developers will be fine. They're not arguing their ratings. In fact, I think very few cases, unlike Hollywood, are arguing their ratings, Getting a mature rating is not the death knell that R is for movies.
Well, in fact, some games may actually want.
Yeah. Mature is almost like a plus.
Yeah.
I don't want to see teen on my Mass Effect. Fuck that. I want to see mature on my Mass Effect. I want to know there's some blue alien butt sex happening, and then I get to see that. I don't want it blurred. Disney bought Lucasfilm. It's been big story of the week.
Yes.
I got quite a bit of retweets off of asking, so does this make Leia a Disney princess?
Yeah, I've seen that and a lot of other things like that going around. The crazy thing to me was, and I literally had to look this up to begin with, was when they announced Episode 7, in the same press release.
Yeah.
That is what you do. That is mustache-twirlingly evil. We don't care about your franchise.
Did you see the interview with Lucas and the new CEO of Lucas?
No, I have not watched that.
Okay. 7, 8, and 9 already have drafts. Were already in production. Lucas was doing it anyway.
Okay. That's interesting.
So there'll be a chance for non-Lucas people to jump in and, God, I hope, de-Jar Jar that, or whatever Lucas was going to do. His track record has not been great.
No.
Not of recent. Not of the last 10 years. Have it been... Two things for indie developers, two things for games, I think, come out of this. One is... they're related. One is you may see revivals in Maniac Mansion and Day of the Tentacle and stuff like that, because Lucas does not sell IP. So Tim Schafer and Rob, they cannot make another Maniac Mansion game. They cannot make another Monkey Island game because that was a Lucas game and they don't work for Lucas. Disney may allow some assets to be sold. Disney is not known for selling assets, but the new Disney, the Disney that is Pixar, Marvel, ABC, ESPN, like Disney's a fucking conglomerate now, may go ahead and allow some of that to be sold. The second thing is, almost all that $4 billion, like half in stock, half in cash, it's going to George. George owns his company almost 100% outright. Lesson to the indies is, don't sell your IP, right? Own all that shit. That's your value. And you might have an opportunity to sell your IP along the way for a decent chunk of change, but like long run, having a portfolio of all this great IP makes you worth $4 billion.
Because technically, like you said, they're not just getting Star Wars. They're getting, Indiana Jones. They're getting LucasArts.
Anything Lucas has ever done, they own. Any LucasArts game, any Lucas property, any Lucasfilm property, they own. So, yes, all of that, good and bad, Disney gets. And that's what makes them worth $4 billion, basically. So, that's my take on that. That's what my advice on there. Next week, Curiosity is finally here. And it's going to be in the App Store.
Is it multi-platform, or is it just a...
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see next week. I'll download and play Curiosity next week when I quit playing Cache of Clans or whatever it is.
Cache of Clans. Did you mean to do that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
But the funny thing is the interesting thing in the story here is that Molyneux was worried that Apple would make him tell him what was in the queue before they could put it on the platform. And Apple didn't. They were like...
They're not all evil.
We love insanity.
All?
We love insanity, and we can respect the Molyneux. By the way, Peter, we do have Chief of Insanity is open. If you kind of, Tim Cook's a great guy at running the company and keeping things efficient and running it. You just have to come in and be insane.
One of their core competencies is needless secrecy.
Yes. There you go.
Can you do that? Wait, if you tell me you can't do that.
Kickstarter's up in the UK. I haven't dug into it too much, except to say that the very first Kickstarter project from the UK was kickstarting a arcade cabinet built around the Raspberry Pi.
Okie dokie. Yeah, there we go.
I don't think you're the first person to do that, to even talk about doing that. Did you want something more
We played
British?
together Kickstarter with it.
Oh.
It was going to be in a fundraiser fashion for the Technology Cooperative, but that was basically kind of what we were doing. But no, really, it was the Cambridge guys, and they got to it first. But the interesting thing I thought was I jumped onto it, and I started, taking it apart. I'm like, well, how they solve this problem, and how they solve that problem, and how they solve, all the problems that we've run into using the MAME emulators on the Raspberry Pi and the state of the drivers and all that. They didn't.
What'd they
They
do?
basically said in the FAQ, oh yeah, sound is shit and performance is crap and, but buy it anyway. And people are. It's like, there you go. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful.
I hate people.
I was going to talk about this for a little bit. Sort of a topic this week, outside of GMX. But, what makes choice interesting? So, a little blog post, guy was asked at a Q&A, how do you make choice interesting and meaningful
In what context?
in a game?
In a game.
And he basically said 3 qualities here you need to have. Quality number 1, the options need to be clear. I need to know that this option is going to save the town and this option kills the town. Okay? It doesn't need to be cryptic or any shit. It should be clear what each choice will do at that moment. Number 2, your options need to be distinct, right? So you can't have, basically in Mass Effect, you get a lot of these the alien force is invading, what should we do? And it's kill them all now, or we should certainly engage and destroy them.
It's not different.
There's not a difference there.
The intention is different, but the moral choice is essentially
It's
the
like,
same.
do I want to say this is a swaggering asshole, or do I want to say this is a diplomat, but I'm going to do the exact same thing? All of the obvious options need to be available. So, like, I think his example was, if you found a poacher out in the woods, the obvious things the player would want to do with him is let him go, turn him in, kill him on the spot, or talk to him and find out why he's doing what he's doing. Like, those are kind of the four, like, main things. You need to make sure they're in there. Even if they're just, like, not a real choice, and you're just going to loop the player back into, like, talk his way out of that or something, and you can't actually, like, turn him in. If you don't have the dialogue up, it's not a meaningful, interesting choice, right? The thing I wanted to do, the thing I would do, is not an option. And then he said there's one thing that he left out. It's not really a rule, but it's kind of just an also note, is that the decisions do not have to have major impact or even any impact on the game to be engaging and meaningful. Just the fact that you have the decision in there, doesn't mean you have to change the gameplay. But if you do them well, the player feels like the story's going the way the player is dictating, not...
Ideally, that means, I would think, not, like, just looping the player back. Like, make it imperceptible to the player unless you go back and play through the entire scenario again and choose
the town's always going to burn down, but you can change the manner in which it does. And, that way you have control over your events, but the player still feels like they're at control.
In both cases, it seems like it flows naturally from the decision.
And of course, it's always great when you make those choices, and they do have an impact. But that's
not always
possible thing. I queued up the news, but I don't want to go down it.
I thought that was the news.
Executive. I'm sorry. I queued up the forum thing to do the forum question and answer again.
I think that was good once.
Yeah, I think it was good once. I think I'm not going to do it.
Wait for a week where you do want to troll the mods.
I think next week we'll start back up with Kickstarter, covering the ones that are ending their funding.
Okay.
That are near success will be the criteria for us to cover them, rather than just cover what we think is interesting. We'll cover successful or near successful. They won't have ended yet, but they'll be close to ending. So it'll be a week worth of endings. And we'll see how that works and go from there. Thank you everyone who tunes into the live show, and thank you everyone who watches on YouTube, and everyone who downloads the audio podcast. We should be back in a week. I don't think we have anything coming up, so
nope.
We will be back then.